I walked into work one day and felt eyes on me that I couldn't identify, until I realized whose they were. The sensation was immediate and unsettling, a whisper of mystery that clung to me as I stepped through the revolving doors of the Sterling Hotel. The lobby, bathed in the soft glow of early morning light, revealed a world of polished marble floors and understated elegance, a place where every detail spoke of a refined routine. Yet beneath it all, something else simmered. My name is Emily, and for the past 3 years, I have managed the front desk of this luxurious hotel. Every day, I navigate the intricate dance of guest expectations and discreet professionalism. But this morning felt different. There was a charged atmosphere, an undercurrent of workplace secrets and forbidden tension that defied the calm composure of our daily tasks. As I moved behind the reception desk, I couldn't shake the feeling of being observed. My eyes flickered over the familiar faces. Jake, a charismatic colleague whose easy smile belied a depth of secrets. Dylan, our commanding boss, whose every measured look hinted at a personal story hidden behind his steely authority. And Melissa, a colleague with a reputation for being cunning and fiercely ambitious, her cool, calculating gaze often betraying emotions she'd rather keep locked away. The mysterious stare that had greeted me seemed to emanate from somewhere unexpected, a presence lurking in the shadows of the corridor, or perhaps hidden among the subtle glances exchanged between familiar faces. I felt both drawn to and wary of this unknown observer. Questions began to whirl through my mind. Was it a guest with a secret agenda, or had one of my own colleagues been harboring feelings they dared not express? The tension was palpable, as if the very air was whispering of confessions too dangerous to reveal. I made my way to the back office to attend to some routine paperwork, but every step down the hallway deepened the sense of intrigue. The corridor, usually a straightforward passage, now seemed to stretch into a labyrinth of possibilities. That's when I noticed it. A neatly folded note, slipped under a door with no indication of its sender. The paper was crisp, its message stark and simple. Every secret has its time. A shiver ran through me as I held the note, its words igniting both my curiosity and a sense of impending revelation. The note was a spark in the dark, awakening, a desire to uncover the hidden layers of our everyday interactions. I couldn't help but wonder if this was the beginning of something transformative, a crack in the mundane facade of professionalism that might reveal truths I had long buried. The subtle interplay of glances and hushed whispers, the unspoken, stories shared in fleeting moments, all coalesced into a tapestry of hidden desires and suppressed confessions. Throughout the morning, the hotel thrummed with a quiet intensity. Behind every door and around every corner, I sensed that someone was watching, waiting for the right moment to step into the light. The polished surfaces of the reception area and the muted elegance of the corridors became the stage for an unfolding drama. I caught brief, furtive smiles from Jake, whose eyes sparkled with secrets, and saw Dylan's gaze linger a moment too long on the private lounge where confidential meetings often took place. Even Melissa, typically reserved and calculating, seemed to harbor a hint of something more volatile behind her composed exterior. Lunch passed in a blur of polite conversation and carefully maintained routines, yet the undercurrent of that mysterious note persisted in my thoughts. I found myself revisiting the words over and over. Every secret has its time. The phrase echoed in my mind like a refrain from a song I couldn't quite place, merging with the whispered rumors of forbidden tension that floated through the hallways. The hotel, with its elegant chandeliers and soft background music, had suddenly transformed into a stage where every detail carried the weight of an unspoken narrative. As the day wore on, the ordinary tasks of my job took on a surreal quality, sorting through reservations, handling discreet requests from high-profile guests, and managing the expectations of a team that prided itself on perfection. All the while, I felt the invisible gaze tracking my every move. Was I merely being paranoid, or had the Sterling Hotel always been a crucible for concealed desires and dangerous liaisons? The questions multiplied with each passing moment, their answers hidden behind layers of professionalism and the unyielding veneer of routine. Then, just as I was about to step out for a brief break to clear my head, the overhead lights flickered unexpectedly, plunging the corridor into a brief, disconcerting darkness. In that suspended moment, the silence was broken by the sound of soft footsteps echoing from somewhere down the hall. My heart pounded as I strained to catch a glimpse of any movement, a shadow slipping by, too swift to define. In that charged silence, I felt as if every secret corridor of the hotel was whispering my name, daring me to look beyond the surface of my carefully ordered existence. The elegant chandeliers, usually a symbol of opulence, now loomed like silent witnesses to the unfolding drama. I couldn't shake the feeling that tonight, the hotel's walls would bear witness to revelations that would blur the lines between duty and desire. Each step I took was weighted with the promise of uncharted territory, a secret narrative hidden within the mundane. And as the echo of that mysterious whisper faded into the darkness, one thought persisted in my mind. Was I truly ready to uncover the truth, no matter the cost? Before I could steady my racing thoughts, a soft, almost imperceptible whisper brushed against my ear. A sound so delicate, it felt like a secret meant only for me. The voice, barely audible yet profoundly stirring, left my heart pounding with both dread and anticipation. In that fleeting moment, the hotel's calm facade cracked open, revealing a glimpse of something dangerous and all-consuming. Subscribe for more confessions. I tried to shake off the lingering unease from that earlier morning encounter as I made my way to the staff break room. The corridor, usually a place of quiet routine, now seemed charged with an undercurrent of hidden promises. Every step I took felt heavier, as if the walls themselves were closing in with secrets. I found a quiet nook by a set of French doors that led to a rarely used lounge, a space cloaked in dim light and soft shadows. It was there, amidst the hushed ambiance and the muted ticking of an antique clock, that the boundaries of professionalism began to blur. I paused for a moment, my heart still thumping from the earlier mysterious note and the sudden darkness that had interrupted my day. The silence was almost tangible, punctuated by the soft hum of the air conditioning and the distant murmur of voices in other parts of the hotel. That small, unassuming room had become a sanctuary for whispered confessions and forbidden proximity. The hotel's routine had always been a delicate dance of order and decorum, but in that secluded space, the distance between colleagues seemed to vanish. As I leaned back in one of the worn armchairs, I couldn't help but reflect on the palpable workplace secrets that had long simmered beneath the surface. I thought about Jake, the charming, enigmatic colleague whose playful smile always carried hints of more than he let on. His presence, once so innocuous, now loomed large in my thoughts. Had his knowing glances been mere friendly banter all along, or were they an invitation to cross an unspoken line? I remembered the way he'd lingered by the reception desk earlier, his eyes locked with mine for just a second too long. His subtle flirtations had always been the subject of hushed speculation among the staff. But today, something had shifted. The air itself felt electric, as if every heartbeat was echoing the silent message that, in this quiet, forbidden space, we were dangerously close to losing control of the boundaries we'd meticulously maintained. The soft click of the door behind me made me turn sharply. There, standing at the threshold, was Jake. His expression was a mixture of concern and something else, a secret that he had guarded so well. For a few heartbeats, we simply stared at each other, the tension between us thickening the already dense atmosphere. I could see the conflict in his eyes, a silent battle between his professional duty and the allure of the unknown. "Emily," he said softly, his voice measured and low. "I didn't expect to see you here." I tried to muster a smile, though it trembled with the weight of unsaid words. "I needed a moment away from the front," I replied, my tone betraying none of the turmoil inside. Yet, beneath my calm facade, my mind raced with unanswered questions. Was this a chance encounter? Or was it part of a larger plan that had been unfolding in the shadows of the Sterling Hotel for weeks? Jake stepped closer, the gap between us narrowing until the air felt charged with an intensity that defied the logic of our routine lives. There was something undeniably magnetic about his proximity, something that whispered of forbidden tension and uncharted territories. We spoke in hushed tones, our words laden with double meanings and secrets that we dared not fully reveal. Every pause in our conversation felt deliberate, as if time itself was yielding to the gravity of our shared moment. I found myself leaning in, drawn by a force I had never acknowledged before. His eyes, reflecting both desire and restraint, seemed to pull me into a narrative where the rules no longer applied. The gentle cadence of our dialogue, interspersed with quiet silences that stretched into what felt like eternity, created an atmosphere of vulnerability and trust. "Do you ever feel," he murmured, after a brief, heavy pause, "that we're living a double life here?" The question hung in the air, resonating with the forbidden allure of a secret shared only by us. I hesitated, a flicker of uncertainty passing through me. "More than you know," I admitted softly, the words slipping out like a confession. It was as if the confines of the break room had dissolved the usual barriers that kept our professional selves separate from our hidden desires. The gentle hum of the air conditioner seemed to underscore our mutual understanding, a reminder that in this moment, nothing was as it should be, yet everything felt achingly right. Our conversation continued, each word a careful step further into a realm of intimacy we had never dared explore before. Every subtle touch, a fleeting brush of hands as Jake reached for a cup of coffee, a shared glance that lingered far too long, served as a reminder that in the quiet confines of the Sterling Hotel, the line between duty and desire was fading. The seductive murmur of our dialogue was interspersed with deliberate pauses, each silence a space where our unspoken thoughts could breathe. As we spoke, my mind raced with the implications of this burgeoning closeness. Was it just a momentary lapse in judgment, or had I been living a lie all along, suppressing a longing that demanded to be acknowledged? The hotel, with all its polished surfaces and impeccable order, had always been a stage for routine and restraint. Yet now, within these intimate moments, every whispered secret, every fleeting touch, felt like a rebellion against the expected. The weight of our conversation grew heavier with each passing minute. The distant sound of footsteps in the corridor broke our reverie, a stark reminder that the hotel was not a sanctuary meant for clandestine meetings. The normalcy of the outside world loomed like an inevitable interruption, ready to shatter the fragile illusion of safety we had built around us. My pulse quickened as the realization sank in. Each moment we indulged in this dangerous proximity risked exposing our hidden truths. In that charged silence, I sensed the hotel's walls closing, in once more, as if to remind us of the cost of crossing boundaries. The forbidden allure of our encounter was tempered by a creeping sense of inevitability, a fear that the delicate balance we had achieved could be disrupted at any moment. The lingering question echoed in my mind. How far was I willing to go before the repercussions of this secret defied all caution? Just then, a sudden, urgent knock on the door shattered the fragile calm. The sound reverberated through the room like a warning bell, leaving both of us frozen in place. My heart pounded in my chest as I exchanged a quick, apprehensive glance with Jake. In that instant, the quiet intimacy of our moment was intruded upon by a presence we hadn't anticipated. A presence that carried with it the potential to unravel everything. I reached out, my hand trembling. Uncertain whether to answer the knock or retreat further into the shadows of our forbidden space, the knock came again, insistent and echoing. And in that moment, I knew that the delicate boundary between our secret world and the rigid reality of our work was about to shatter. The knock persisted, its rhythm punctuating the charged silence that had filled the room. I hesitated, my heart caught between a surge of dread and a reckless curiosity. Before I could decide on my next move, the door swung open with a quiet but determined click. Stepping in was Dylan, his broad shoulders and stern gaze instantly commanding the space. His eyes, normally so measured, flickered with a mixture of concern and something unspoken, an intensity that hinted he knew more than he let on. "Emily," Dylan's voice broke through the tension, deep and resonant. "We need to talk. Now." His tone was not just a command, but a warning, as if the calm of our hidden world had been irrevocably disturbed. Jake instinctively moved, closer to me, his earlier flirtatious air replaced by a palpable anxiety. The presence of our boss here, unannounced and unmistakably serious, sent a ripple of apprehension through my mind. As Dylan stepped further into the room, the soft hum of the air conditioner and the muted ticking of the antique clock seemed to fade into the background, leaving only the weight of his words. "There's been talk, a whisper of things that shouldn't be happening here," he continued, his gaze sweeping over us both. "I found a note earlier today that suggests our workplace secrets might be more than just idle chatter." His eyes locked onto mine, and I could see in them a spark of something akin to betrayal, mingled with disappointment. For a moment, time seemed to stretch, each second laden with the risk of revelation. I felt a surge of conflicting emotions. On one hand, the allure of our forbidden closeness with Jake had ignited something dangerous and irresistible inside me. On the other, Dylan's authoritative presence reminded me of the rigid boundaries I'd always promised myself never to cross. The room, which had been our clandestine haven only moments before, now transformed into a stage for impending confrontation. Just as Dylan's words began to sink in, the door at the far end of the lounge creaked open once more. In stepped Melissa, her entrance as graceful as it was unexpected. Dressed impeccably in a tailored suit that matched her reputation for cunning precision, she surveyed the scene with cool detachment. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, took in every detail, the lingering tension, the uneasy alliance between Jake and me, and the barely concealed storm that Dylan's presence had unleashed. "Melissa," Dylan acknowledged her with a curt nod, but the air was thick with an unspoken understanding. It was as if her arrival was not coincidental. Instead, she carried with her the weight of another secret, another piece of this intricate puzzle. I could almost feel the gears turning in her mind, calculating risks and rewards with a precision that left no room for sentimentality. The three of us, Dylan with his commanding presence, Melissa with her enigmatic poise, and Jake, still hovering, protectively close, now formed a triangle of intensifying scrutiny around me. Their eyes, each filled with their own mixture of suspicion, desire, and concern, turned my inner world into a public spectacle. Every heartbeat thudded in my ears as the conversation took on a rapid, overlapping cadence. "I'm aware of some inconsistencies," Dylan stated, his tone leaving little room for debate. "This isn't just about an innocuous note, it's about the boundaries we've all ignored for too long. Emily, your recent behavior hasn't gone unnoticed." His words, delivered with deliberate pauses that punctuated every syllable, left me reeling. Was he referring solely to my private moments with Jake, or was there something deeper, a web of entangled secrets spanning more than just our flirtations? Before I could muster a response, Melissa's voice, smooth yet laced with ice, interjected. "We all have our reasons, Dylan," she said, glancing at me with a look that was both accusatory and strangely empathetic. "Perhaps it's time we acknowledge that the lines between duty and desire aren't as clear-cut as we'd like to believe." Her statement, delivered after a measured pause, seemed to challenge the very foundations of our professional decorum. Jake shifted uncomfortably, his usual confident demeanor replaced by a vulnerability that made his eyes search mine for reassurance. In that charged moment, every silent pause between us carried a weight of unspoken confessions and forbidden yearnings. The room vibrated with the resonance of our intertwined fates, each of us standing at a precipice between the safe routines of our lives and the thrilling, dangerous promise of what might be. I could feel the tension spike further as Dylan's gaze turned back to me. "Emily, I need you to be honest. Were you complicit in this charade? Or is there something else at play here?" His question, heavy with implications, left me scrambling for words. The truth hovered on the edge of my tongue, threatened by the dual forces of desire and duty. My mind raced with the implications. Could I confess that I'd allowed myself to be swept up in a web of forbidden emotions? Or should I cling to the cold armor of professionalism? A brief, almost imperceptible pause stretched on. A momentary suspension of time that was punctuated by the distant sound of a telephone ringing somewhere in the hotel. The chime echoed like an omen, a reminder that the outside world, with its expectations and consequences, was never far away. For a split second, the soft lighting in the room seemed to dim further, as if the very atmosphere was bracing itself for the confession that I was not yet ready to give. In that quiet stillness, a sudden power fluctuation sent a shudder through the building. The overhead lights flickered violently, casting erratic shadows on the walls. It was as if the hotel itself was protesting the unraveling of our carefully maintained facades. Jake's hand brushed mine instinctively, a fleeting moment of comfort amid the encroaching chaos. The contact sparked a rush of adrenaline, intensifying every emotion in the room: fear, excitement, and a deep, almost primal connection that neither of us could deny. "Look," Melissa said sharply, her tone slicing through the tension as she stepped forward, her eyes glinting in the half-light. "We're at a crossroads. This isn't just about misdirected glances or secret notes anymore. It's about us, each of us, being forced to confront what we truly desire and what we're willing to sacrifice for it." Her words were like a clarion call, stirring a maelstrom of feelings that churned within me. The line between the professional and the personal was vanishing, and with it, the semblance of control I had so carefully constructed. As Dylan reached out, his hand hovering in the air as if to steady the unfolding storm, I felt my resolve waver. The mixture of defiance and desperation that had characterized my inner life surged forth. I knew that this moment was pivotal. It was a crossroads where every decision could irrevocably alter the course of my future. The question that had been lurking at the back of my mind, how far was I willing to push the boundaries of what was acceptable, now demanded an answer. Before any of us could speak further, the lights steadied, their glow returning to a semblance of normalcy. Yet the atmosphere remained irrevocably altered, every shadow a silent witness to our fractured composure. In that fleeting return to normality, a new sound pierced the tension, a hurried, muffled voice from the far end of the corridor. It was as if someone was calling out, desperate and urgent, their plea a harbinger of yet another secret ready to be exposed. My breath hitched as the voice grew louder, echoing through the polished corridors of the Sterling Hotel. Dylan's eyes darkened with a mixture of anger and concern, and Melissa's expression shifted to one of guarded calculation. Jake's hand squeezed mine, a silent gesture of solidarity as we all braced ourselves for what might come next. The unanswered question loomed large. Who else was involved, and what was the true cost of the secrets we had all been keeping in that charged moment? The room seemed to hold its breath. The sound of the approaching footsteps, rapid, determined, served as both a promise and a threat. Each second that ticked by was heavy with the anticipation of revelation, and the fragile balance of our hidden world teetered on the brink of collapse. As the footsteps drew nearer, I felt my pulse quicken in tandem with the surge of emotions that threatened to overwhelm us all. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, the voice outside reached a crescendo, a final desperate cry that shattered the lingering calm. The door to our secluded sanctuary quivered on its hinges, the promise of yet another forbidden confession echoing in the space between our racing hearts. The question remained: what revelation was about to break through the fragile veil of our carefully guarded secrets? The lounge fell into a deceptive silence, as if holding its breath for what was to come. In that isolated space, away from the prying eyes of the hotel's corridors, every second seemed to stretch with a deliberate, slow cadence, 0.5x. Jake stood before me, his gaze oscillating between desire and deep-seated conflict, a look that promised both ecstasy and imminent peril. The palpable, forbidden tension in the room, echoing our shared workplace secrets, heightened every emotion. I felt the pull of temptation, the magnetic allure of a secret that defied all caution. Drawn forward almost involuntarily, I stepped closer, the soft glow of the overhead light accentuating every line of his face. Our proximity sparked an intimacy that defied our professional boundaries, each heartbeat marking the risk we were about to embrace. I could almost taste the forbidden promise in the charged air as our faces neared, the pause between us lingering long enough to feel like an eternity. Long, deliberate pause of about a second that seemed to slow time itself. In that fragile moment of intimacy, just as our breaths mingled and the vulnerability of our unspoken desires reached its peak, a sudden vibration cut through the silence. Jake's phone lit up with an unwelcome message, its harsh glow shattering the spell we had woven. His hand, which had been a tender reassurance moments before, jerked away as he glanced at the screen. The message revealed an unexpected betrayal, a terse note from Melissa. "You have been playing with fire, Jake. Our plan must proceed." In that heart-stopping instant, I saw his eyes darken, and the connection we shared disintegrated into shards of deceit. The shift was palpable. The room, once a haven of subtle seduction, transformed into a cold arena of shattered trust. My heart sank as the realization washed over me. Our clandestine closeness, our whispered promises, had all been manipulated. Every secret, every unspoken word, now carried the weight of betrayal. How could the warmth I had felt so deeply be so swiftly replaced by the sting of deception? For a long, weighted moment, a pause that seemed to stretch on as if time itself were holding its breath. I searched his face for any sign of the man I thought I knew, but his expression, once inviting and soft, had hardened into a mask of regret and resolve. The air grew thick with the bitter taste of betrayal, leaving me questioning everything I believed about our connection. The delicate dents of our shared forbidden tension had been nothing more than a carefully orchestrated ruse, and now every promise felt like a lie waiting to be unveiled. Before any further words could escape, Jake's lips parted as if to offer an explanation, yet the room swallowed his voice in an oppressive silence. The intensity of that moment left me standing at the precipice of my own undoing, the weight of our secrets and the revelation of betrayal hanging heavily in the air. The unspoken question tormented me. How could I have been so completely deceived? Subscribe and leave your like. What would you do? What did he whisper next that froze me?